Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our community church, Unitarian Universalist. I am your worship associate, Alicia, and it is a joy to be with you both in person and virtually today. So who are we as Community Church? We are a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. We welcome all who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning. Ours is a faith in action as we do the work of social justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every being. Please look to your weekly email for announcements. And now that some of us are able to be back in the church, we are continuing to broadcast services online. We are so thankful to the members who've made it possible for us to have virtual services during this pandemic, and we could use some more help on the tech side of worship so that we can continue streaming our worship services. So if you might be interested in being part of our tech crew, please let us know. And once again, if you are joining us virtually and you would like to be joining us in person on Sundays, you are very welcome to attend our in-person service. We are requesting proof of vaccination or a recent negative COVID test, and we mask during the service, but otherwise you are fully welcome to be here. So today we are delighted to welcome back to our pulpit, Allison McCrary. Allison is a tribal citizen of the Ani-Yun-Wiya United Cherokee Nation, a social justice movement lawyer, Catholic activist, mediator, and restorative justice practitioner. She currently serves as a spiritual advisor on Louisiana's death row, a nonprofit consultant, and the Movement Capacity Building Strategist supporting about 50 formerly incarcerated-people-led nonprofits in the United States. She formerly served as the statewide campaign manager for the Unanimous Jury Coalition, abolishing a 138-year-old Jim Crow law in Louisiana, the founding director of the Louisiana Reentry Mediation Program, the executive director of the National Police Accountability Project, president of the Louisiana chapter of the National Lawyers Guild, and founding director of the New Orleans Community Police Mediation. She teaches Christian ethics at Loyola University, New Orleans, and serves as the practitioner in residence at Wake Forest University's School of Divinity. So we are very happy to have her here with us. Let us prepare for worship with our chalice lighting. Please sing along the words as you know and remember them. It is now time for Words for All Ages with our Religious Education Director, Cynthia Ramirez.
Good morning, everybody. I just want to say he came back safely. This story is called Old Dog and Coyote. It's an old Mexican story. A long time ago, in the Mexican desert, there was an old dog who lived with the chicken farmer. One day, the farmer found the old dog fast asleep, while the chickens cackled and raised a ruckus at a wolf prowling outside their yard. The farmer chased the wolf away and raged at the dog. "Wake up, you lazy creature. You are a useless watchdog. Go and find your own food today." Hungry and humiliated, the old dog crept from the farmer's shack into the desert. He poked about the cactus and yucca plants for small rodents and lizards to catch and eat. A howl made him look across the desert, and there he saw Coyote, and looking up and down, and jumping up and down. Curious, the old dog padded over and snarled, "What are you doing?" The coyote replied, "Do not bother me. I'm practicing for my big jump." The old dog was confused and asked, "Where are you going to jump?" Coyote bragged, "I am the best jumper in the desert, and I'm going to jump over a giant cactus." "You are foolish," the old dog said. "You can't jump over a cactus." Coyote replied, "Anything is possible with practice. Watch me try." Before them stood a huge prickly thorn cactus. Coyote took a great running leap and, soaring to the top of the cactus, landed directly on top of the thorns. The old dog had never heard a howl as loud as the one Coyote made as he tumbled to the ground, stuck all over with prickly thorns. Now, old dog hadn't saw the most pain that he was in, and he couldn't bear it anymore. And he said, "Coyote, I can't bear to see you in such pain, and can I help you?" And the coyote agreed, and one by one, the old dog, for hours, sat there picking out the thorns, until the very last one, the coyote says, "Ah, you're such a good dog." And the old dog hung his head in shame and says, "No, I'm not. I'm not a good watchdog, and I am no use to the farmer." And he goes, he won't feed me, and I have to eat for myself. And so Coyote was like, "That's crazy, I'm going to help you." So he came up with a plan, and he whispered it to the old dog. And that night, the old dog went back to the farmer's with his animals. And so Coyote came in and started running around, barking at the things and everything. And the old dog ran after him, and they were running and everything. And Coyote ran away with his tail between his legs. And the old man came out, and he went, "Wow, you are a really good watchdog." And Coyote ran up to the top of the hill, and he started laughing. So the farmer came in. He says, "I'm going to give you the biggest steak bone that I have for such a great job that you're doing." So every night, Coyote came down, ran after the chickens and everything, and the old dog ran after him, and he ran up the thing, ran up to the hill and started laughing. Since the dog was of use to him, fed him every night the best food that he could have until the day he died. The end.
The Perfect Cup by Sister Joyce Roop. I'm going to read this rather slowly so you can kind of meditate on it a little bit. It is time for me to see the flaws of myself and stop being alarmed. It is time for me to halt my drive for perfection and to accept my blemishes. It is time for me to receive slowly evolving growth, the kind that comes in God's own good time and pays no heed to my panicky pushing. It is time for me to embrace my humanness, to love my incompleteness. It is time for me to cherish the unwanted, the unwanted. It is time for me to cherish the unwanted, to welcome the unknown, to treasure the unfulfilled. If I wait to be perfect before I love myself, I will always be unsatisfied and ungrateful. If I wait until all the flaws, chips, and cracks disappear, I will be the cup that stands on the shelf and is never used.
Community Church Unitarian Universalist is a self-sustaining congregation. Members' and friends' generosity help us to do the sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to our community and beyond. You can give online at ccuunola.org/stewardship or by text at 504-370-2659. Text the word give. You can also send us a check at 6690 Fleur-de-Lis Drive, New Orleans 70124. And of course now, you can give in person. You can come forward during our musical offertory. If you are unable to come forward, raise your hand and we will come to you. Thank you. Thank you, community, for your generosity. And now is our sacred time of joys and sorrows. If you are online, please write your joys and sorrows into the chat box if you wish them read aloud in our community. If you are in person, there are cards of joys and sorrows right here. You may write one down for me to read in person. We will also have a moment if you want to come up to the mic and speak your joys and sorrows. So again, chat box, cards, or coming up to the mic after our musical interlude. We have a joy from Elizabeth, excited to see 5 to 11-year-old shots approved. Hope to see younger folks soon. My 3-year-old wants to play. Amen. It'd be wonderful to have young folks around here again. Marilyn says, joy and thank you to Esther, who graciously hosted a dinner for 6 in her home. We had a delicious meal, wonderful conversation, and joyful community. The next dinners will be on November 20th, and all are welcome. From Vera O'Neill, we pray for the work of the CCUU board and for the retreat today, as they pray and plan for what is best for our church and its members. And from Bill Fernandez, he is happy to report that our PPP loan of $20,000 in 2020 has been officially forgiven. Oh. Is there anyone else who would like to come up and share a joy or a concern with our community? All right. In that case, we will light 2 more candles, one for the joys still bubbling up, 2 new to share, and one for the sorrows that we cannot yet put words to. Know that we love you and that we hold you in our hearts.
An adaptation from Psalms 31, 5 through 16. Into your hand I commend my spirit. You will redeem me, love, God of truth. Be gracious to me, love, for I am in distress. Affliction is wearing down my eyes, my throat, and my insides. My life is worn out by sorrow, and my years by sighing. My strength fails in my affliction. My bones are wearing down. Be strong and take heart, all who hope in the love. I am forgotten, out of mind like the dead. I am like a worn-out tool. I hear the whispers of the crowd. Terrors are all around me, but I trust in you, love. I say, you are my God. Let your face shine on your servant. Save me in your mercy. Amen.
Good morning, and thank you again for inviting me back to this sacred space to worship with all of you this morning. This is really holy ground, and I'm so delighted to be here in community with all of you as your guest minister. And so this morning I wanted to share some reflections that I've had on the beauty that we find in our brokenness as we embrace our humanity and see the broken and wounded parts of ourselves. How we are all inherently blessed, inherently broken, and called to share with each other. I was a Catholic sister for 13 years up until last year, and once I was at our large congregational gathering, our highest level meeting as a Catholic nun. It's called a chapter, and it takes place every 5 years. And I was sharing a room with another sister, Sister Mary Southard. And in these meetings, it's 600 Catholic sisters. We meet every day for a week for discernment, prayer, decision-making, fellowship, and electing our congregational leadership team. So I was sharing a room with Sister Mary, and we're each in our twin beds, about to go to sleep. The lights are out, and Mary's an incredible artist. She's a mentor. I consider her a very deep mystic. She has an art studio next to her bedroom at the Mother House. She's 79 years old, very peaceful demeanor. Every time she walks, whatever room she's in, it's as if she's just floating and gliding through whatever space she's in. And so we were about to go to sleep one night, and she says, "Allison, what do you pray before you go to bed? Like, what are the last words before you close your eyes?" And I was like, well, I don't really have any. But I said, I usually do the Ignatian Examine. The Ignatian Examine is from the Jesuit tradition where you review the day with gratitude. You pay attention to feelings and emotions that come up. You think about one event that you had from that day. You pray with it, reflect on it, and pray for tomorrow. I thought that would be a good answer as a younger sister. I'm not faithful to it every day, but it is a good practice to have. And so I was like, I don't really have any words that I say just before I close my eyes. So I returned the question to her, and she goes, well, I say, into your hands I commend my spirit. And I said, ew. I said, weren't those Jesus's last words on the cross? That's kind of gruesome to think about. And it's the psalm the revised psalm that we read. And it reminded me of the same prayer. I was like, well, as a little girl, me and my sisters, our parents taught us this prayer that was from the 1700s. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to take if I shall die before I wake. And so it was another gruesome thing for us children to pray every night. But yeah, there was something to remembering our mortality and remembering death and how short life is. And so the prayer that Sister Mary had told me that she says before bed of, into your hands I commend my spirit, it came back to me last week. I had a cold. It was not COVID. I took 3 tests to be certain. But I was feeling so weak and tired and exhausted. I had a sore throat and a cough. And I was praying with this Psalm 31 from the Hebrew and Christian tradition that we read. And there's a gift in this surrendering. Surrendering is not a giving up or a giving in, but it's a radical trust in something more. It's a reminder to slow down. It's a reminder that we're all here for a temporary time and that life is shorter than we think it is. It's in this slowing down time, especially when it's not by choice, when we get a cold or something that we can't control, where we have this invitation to rest. It's not a rest to recharge so we can be more productive or to do more, as capitalism teaches us. It's a rest because it's our divine human right to rest and to slow down It's a reminder that we're enough for as we are. We're enough for just being, regardless of our doing. As an Enneagram 3, for anyone who's familiar with the Enneagram, it's really hard for us to slow down and to accept our imperfections. And being sick with a cold, it was a good radical reminder for me to rest and to accept my imperfections. Usually I would push on and I would try to make my meetings and go on with life as normal, and the cold would last 2 or 3 times as usual. But I had to cancel meetings, I canceled mediation sessions, restorative justice sessions, and a board retreat I was supposed to facilitate. And Sister Joyce Rupp's poem, The Perfect Cup, it reminded me to see the flaws in ourselves, the flaws that halt our drive for perfection, to accept our blemishes, to receive our slow evolving growth that comes with time, to end the constant pushing of ourselves to do more or to be more, to embrace our incompleteness, our humanness, and to truly love ourselves with all the flaws and the chips and the cracks. The people of Japan have a tradition called kintsugi, which means golden repair. Some of you may have seen the images of the cups with the cracks in it that are repaired with gold. It's a Japanese art of repairing broken pottery by mending the areas of breakage with lacquer, dusted or mixed with powdered gold, silver, or platinum. As a philosophy, it treats this breaking and the repair of the break as part of the history of the object, rather than something to cover up or disguise or pretend that never happened. Not only is there no attempt to hide the damage, but there's a literal illumination of the damage, an illumination of its brokenness. It's a physical expression of the spirit that carries with it this idea of non-attachment, of changing conditions, of ever evolving and growing and changing. And so I think to live a life that's well lived is to be like that cup with the chips and the cracks in it. A cup that's well used, a cup that's filled with coffee stains, that has chips from dropping it occasionally. It's better to have it than to be that cup that stands on the shelf that's never used. In the Christian tradition, we have the ritual of Holy Communion. It requires that bread has to be broken before it can be shared. And I think to be in community, we have to be broken before we can share with each other. It means to be vulnerable in our relationships with each other so we can experience true intimacy and the sharing that happens. Oftentimes, it's our brokenness that helps us become most in touch with our own humanity and the humanity with each other, because we're each blessed, broken, and called to be shared with each other. Each of us are born blessed. In some Christian traditions, they talk about original sin. I don't believe there's any such thing as original sin. There's only original blessing and original love. And our socialization, our human woundedness, and the identities we assume, political or otherwise, they confuse us, and they forget the original blessing and our innate human goodness. We're each born blessed. And we're each broken. We're each called to move towards the pain and suffering of the world. It's in our brokenness and our suffering that we find a deep mystery. And it's in service and contemplation where we can touch the physical and mental wounds in ourselves and in others and in the world. I've heard people pour forth the worst of spiritual, mental, physical, and emotional sorrow, anguish, and misery. I sit with police officers who have killed young black men before they go into a restorative justice session with their family members of the person that they killed. I sit with people on death row who are within hours of being executed by our government. And it's moving towards this pain and suffering of the world that transforms our hearts and minds and forever changes us and evolves us and helps us to look at our own brokenness. And at times, in my own doubts and struggles, I've been so intense and feeling so incapable of holding some of it, and feeling the call to just quit and to give up. And it's in those times where we find community, and that's where the sharing comes in, that we're called to share our brokenness, to share the broken bread with each other, that we're not called to do any of this work alone. There's no solo acts in justice work. There's no solo acts in liberation work. But we're called to do it with each other, to accompany each other, and to share in it together. It's in this communion or communal union or community that we have with each other that requires us to break bread and to be shared with each other. And so it's a suffering and pain that can unite us. Sometimes it seems that brokenness is what helps me get most in touch with my humanity, even though it's uncomfortable, it's embarrassing at times. And I know that this part of my nature doesn't make me unique. It's in all of us. And I think at all times sometimes we feel dysfunctional or inoperable or crumbled in certain circumstances in one way or another. And so in the privilege that I have in my ministry is to move towards this pain and suffering and to see up close the personal cracks in others' lives and in myself. And every moment of this intimate sharing and trust of the sacred invites me to reflect on my own life as people share vulnerable and hard things with me. It reminds me of Leonard Cohen's song, Anthem, that there's a crack. The lyrics are, there's a crack in everything, and that's how the light gets in. But I want to offer an expansion of this idea of the light coming through the cracks, because I think light can also come out through the cracks. And so I think we're all broken so that the light can come through our brokenness, out through our cracks. Last year, I made one of the hardest decisions of my life after 13 years of what I thought would be giving my life, making vows of poverty, celibacy, and obedience as a vowed Catholic nun. And the decision to leave that, I was like, people are going to be disappointed, people are going to be angry, people are going to be let down. I felt like I was carrying this whole tradition that dated back to the 1300s on my shoulders. It was a big weight to carry. And but it was really just accepting that I have my own human needs and my own brokenness, and only when I can receive and fill my own cup can I give to others. And so it was really allowing what is going to allow my light to shine through and acknowledging the cracks that I have. And making that decision was one of them. And so I think we're all broken so that we can share light with others, so that we can be instruments of love, of compassion, of mercy, of helping people see their own dignity, even in their brokenness and in their hardest times. And I think that's how we can mend a broken world and help everyone to live most out of love. And so I'll close with, may we leave today and be strengthened and transformed to see the beauty in our own brokenness. May we see the gifts and challenge of being part of a world that is in transition and confronting its own brokenness. And may we be invited to help tend the brokenness of this world, to respond to the call of accepting our brokenness, giving it to whatever God of whatever name, and allowing our cracks to be filled with light and grace.